Humanity's fleet wipes out the enemy. Upon arrival, the stars hung silent in the void as the hegemony battlecruiser, Dominant, glided toward the blue-green planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. Captain Dorn of the 7th Battle Fleet watched with cold satisfaction. Another world to add to their collection, another species to subjugate. Life signs confirmed, Commander. Primitive civilization, pre-space flight capability, reported his sensor officer. Dorn clicked his mandibles in amusement. Begin standard conquest protocol. They'll barely have time to organize a response. Little did they know that across the stars, humanity had been watching. For centuries, Earth had developed in peaceful isolation, hidden behind an unusual stellar phenomenon that masked their radio signatures and shielded them from detection. Scientists called it the veil, a dense cloud of charged particles that had surrounded Sol system since before recorded history. In the grand meeting hall of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters in Seoul, Admiral Han stood before the tactical display, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic projection of Proxima Centauri. "The signals are clear," he said, addressing the gathered military leaders. "The hegemony has begun their attack on Proxima. If we don't act now, millions of innocent beings will die." Defense Minister Bay, a tall woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair, stepped forward. "Our fleet is ready but untested in actual combat. Are you certain we should reveal ourselves now?" Admiral Han nodded firmly. "The veil has been dissipating for the past decade. Sooner or later they would find us anyway. Better to choose the time and place of our introduction." "What do we know about their technology?" asked General Park, the youngest of the council. "Members. Their shield systems are advanced but fundamentally flawed," replied Han. "Our scientists have analyzed the scattered transmissions we've intercepted. Their entire military doctrine relies on energy deflection systems that are phase-shifted. Weapons should bypass completely." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent generations preparing for this moment, developing technologies and weapons based on theoretical encounters with hostile species. While the hegemony had grown lazy and complacent from easy victories, humans had been innovating, planning and building a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had seen. "The Dauntless Fleet stands ready," said Han. 25 warships, our best and brightest crews. If we're right about their technological weaknesses, we can end this quickly." Defense Minister Bay closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. "You have authorization, Admiral. May your journey be swift and your return victorious." 3 days later, the massive hangar doors of the Luna shipyards opened. One by one, humanity's warships emerged, sleek vessels with distinctive angular hulls reflecting the sun's light. Unlike the bulbous designs favored by the hegemony, Earth ships prioritized speed and maneuverability. On the bridge of the flagship Horizon, Admiral Han settled into the command chair. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each trained for years for this moment. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Communications Officer Yoon, her voice steady despite the historic nature of their mission. "Navigator Lee, set course for Proxima Centauri," ordered Han. "Maximum speed once we clear the solar boundary." As the Horizon led the fleet away from Earth, Chief Engineer Kang approached the Admiral with a tablet. "Final diagnostics on the gravity drive, sir. All systems nominal. We'll reach Proxima in 16 hours. Han raised an eyebrow. The hegemony's fastest ships would take weeks to cover the same distance. The element of surprise would be total. Tactical Officer Song, review. Battle simulations once more. I want all gunners to understand exactly how to target their shield generators. Lieutenant Song nodded sharply. Already in progress, sir. The crew is eager. In his private quarters that evening, Han reviewed the intelligence gathered on the hegemony. For 300 years, they had expanded unchecked across the galaxy, a coalition of 7 species united only by their belief in conquest. They had never encountered serious resistance, never faced a technological equal. That was about to change. Han touched the small photograph on his desk, his family standing before their home in the countryside. Everything he fought for was contained in that image. Not just his family, but all families. All of humanity. The next morning, as they approached Proxima, Science Officer Lee called the Admiral to the sensor station. Sir, long-range scans confirm 8 hegemony vessels in orbit. They're bombarding the third planet's northern continent. Han's jaw tightened. Launch tactical probes. I want detailed scans of their shield frequencies before we engage. As the data streamed in, the science team worked feverishly confirming their theories about hegemony technology. Finally, Lee looked up with a smile that promised victory. Sir, our weapons will cut through their shields like they're not even there. Their entire defensive strategy is built around energy absorption at frequencies our phase-shifted beams simply don't operate on. Admiral Han nodded and returned to the command chair. Around the bridge, his crew stood a little straighter, sensing the moment had arrived. All ships, battle formation Theta, he ordered. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. The human fleet accelerated toward Proxima Centauri, engines blazing against the darkness of space. They carried with them humanity's hopes and a message for any who would threaten the innocent. Earth was no longer hidden, and humanity was no longer watching from the shadows. On the hegemony command ship, an alarm suddenly blared. Commander Dorn, multiple vessels approaching at impossible speed. Dorn rushed to the view screen, mandibles clicking in confusion. From where? There are no spacefaring civilizations within 50 light years. As the human fleet appeared on their sensors, the hegemony was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating an unknown enemy. The gathering storm of humanity's vengeance had arrived. Commander Dorn stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. His second-in-command, Officer Krell, frantically recalibrated the equipment. This can't be right, Krell muttered. No known species has vessels that can travel at such speeds. The main view screen showed multiple ships approaching their position, around Proxima Centauri, appearing seemingly out of nowhere. Their design was unlike anything in the hegemony database. Sleek, angular crafts with what appeared to be impossibly small engine outputs for their velocity. Are they responding to our standard contact protocols? Dorn demanded. Nothing yet, Commander, the communications officer replied. Wait, we're receiving a transmission now. The screen flickered to show a human face. Admiral Han looked directly at the alien commander, his expression calm but resolute. This is Admiral Han of the United Earth Defense Force. We request you cease your attack on the Proxima Centauri system immediately and withdraw your forces. Dorn's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of amusement among his species. Earth? There is no record of this world in our database. We've been watching from behind the veil, Han replied evenly. Your attacks on peaceful worlds end today. Dorn clicked his mandibles together sharply. You have no understanding of your situation, creature. The hegemony has conquered 342 worlds. Your handful of ships is nothing more than an inconvenience. He cut the transmission and turned to his battle commander. Scan their vessels. What are we dealing with? The tactical officer worked quickly. Primitive hull composition, Commander. Their weapon systems appear to be based on outdated particle acceleration technology. Our shields will hold easily. Dorn nodded, his confidence returning. Deploy in standard annihilation formation. Let's make this quick. Aboard the Horizon, Admiral Han watched the hegemony ships adjust their positions. The alien response was exactly what they had expected. They're forming up to surround us, reported Tactical Officer Song. Standard hegemony attack pattern, just as our intelligence suggested. Lieutenant Kim, the young weapons specialist, approached with a data tablet. Sir, we've completed our scan of their shield systems. The frequency vulnerabilities are even more pronounced than our theories predicted. Han nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. They're overconfident. Their technology hasn't meaningfully advanced in centuries because they've never needed to innovate. He turned to Communications Officer Yoon. Send one final warning. Yoon nodded and opened the channel. Hegemony vessels, this is your final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. The only response was the sudden flare of energy as the lead alien ship fired its main weapons. The brilliant beam of light streaked toward the horizon, only to pass harmlessly through the space where the human ship had been a split second earlier. All ships, execute maneuver pattern Falcon, ordered Han calmly. The human fleet moved, with a coordination that shocked the watching hegemony commanders. Their ships could change direction instantly, seemingly ignoring the laws of inertia, dancing between the alien energy beams with impossible precision. On the hegemony command ship, alarms were blaring. "Commander, their movement capabilities exceed anything in our records." Dorn slammed his fist onto the console. "Impossible. No species can achieve such maneuverability." "Sir, they're locking weapons," reported his tactical officer with growing concern. "Let them fire," Dorn replied dismissively. "Our shields have never failed." Aboard the Horizon, Han gave the order they had trained for over countless simulations. "All ships target their shield generators with phase-shifted beams." Lieutenant Kim's fingers danced across his console. "Targeting complete. Firing solutions. Locked. Fire," Han commanded softly. From the human vessels erupted streams of energy unlike anything the hegemony had encountered before. The beams shifted phase as they traveled, modulating through frequencies at rates that made them appear almost transparent. When they struck the hegemony shields, they didn't bounce off or get absorbed. They passed right through. On Dorn's ship, consoles exploded and warning sirens blared. "Shields failing. Impossible," screamed the tactical officer. "How?" Dorn demanded, genuine fear in his voice for the first time. "Our shields are impenetrable." Science Officer Lee had moved to Admiral Han's side on the horizon. "Their shield technology relies on predictable energy frequencies," she explained. "They've never encountered weapons that can modify their phase mid-flight." Han nodded. "And they never considered the possibility because they've grown complacent. Send the second wave." Another volley of fire erupted from the human ships. This time, the beams targeted the hegemony vessel's engines. 2 alien ships immediately went dark, drifting powerless in space. "Commander!" Krell shouted over the chaos on the hegemony bridge. "Their weapons. They're bypassing all our defenses." Dorn stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 300 years of uncontested conquest, and now this unknown species was cutting through their fleet like it was made of paper. "Send emergency transmissions to the High Command," he ordered. "We need reinforcements immediately." The communications officer worked frantically at his station. "Transmissions sent, but I don't know if they got through. These humans are disrupting our communication arrays somehow." On the horizon, Han watched the battle unfold with the calm of someone who had prepared for this moment his entire life. "Status of the Proxima Centauri settlements?" he asked. "The hegemony bombardment has stopped," reported Officer Yoon. "Civilian casualties appear to be minimal, mostly in unpopulated areas." Han nodded grimly. "Good. Now prepare boarding parties for the command vessel. I want their databases intact." As the human ships continued their precise assault, the hegemony crews faced a terrible realization. For the first time in their history of conquest, they were completely outmatched. Their technology, their tactics, their very understanding of warfare had been rendered obsolete in a single engagement. Officer Krell approached Commander Dorn, his voice low. "Sir, I recommend immediate surrender. We've lost 3 ships already and the rest are heavily damaged." Dorn's mandibles twitched in rage. "The hegemony does not surrender," he hissed. But the fear in his eyes betrayed his words. The human fleet encircled the remaining hegemony vessels, their precision movements leaving no avenue for escape. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy's balance of power was about to shift dramatically. From his command chair, Admiral Han watched as the first boarding shuttles launched toward the hegemony command ship. "First contact," he murmured, "is rarely peaceful, but sometimes it must be decisive." The Horizon's bridge hummed with focused energy as Admiral Han studied the tactical display. 5 hegemony vessels remained operational, their formations scattered and disorganized after the initial human assault. The element of surprise had worked perfectly, but Han knew better than to underestimate a cornered enemy. "They're regrouping," observed Tactical Officer Song, pointing to the alien ships forming. "A defensive cluster. Standard hegemony protocol when faced with superior firepower." Han nodded. They'll be attempting to combine their shield outputs. Lieutenant Kim, what's your assessment? Kim studied his readings intently. Even with combined shields, they can't adapt to our phase-shifting technology quickly enough. Their systems are too rigid, designed for overwhelming force rather than adaptation. The boarding party has secured the outer hull of the command vessel, reported Officer Yoon through her
headset.
Team leader Jin reports minimal resistance so far. Han's expression remained unchanged, but a subtle tension ran through his shoulders. The real test was beginning now. Simulations and theories were one thing. Sustained combat against a galactic power was another. All ships execute Formation Delta, Han ordered. Target their weapons arrays but leave propulsion intact. We want them disabled, not destroyed. The human fleet responded immediately, breaking into smaller attack groups that approached the hegemony cluster from multiple vectors. Their movements appeared almost choreographed, each ship anticipating the other's positions with perfect precision. Aboard the hegemony command ship, chaos reigned. Commander Dorn shouted orders that went unheeded as crew members rushed to repair critical systems. Seal the command deck, he bellowed as reports of human boarding parties reached him. Purge the central database. They must not access our tactical information. Officer Krell worked frantically at his console. Database purge initiated, but it's being blocked somehow. Their systems are interfering with our commands. Dorn slammed his fist against the bulkhead. Impossible. Their technology should be centuries behind ours. A junior officer approached timidly. Sir, the humans, they're not using anything like our technology. It's not that they're more advanced. They've developed along completely different principles. Outside, the battle continued to unfold. The human vessels executed maneuvers that defied the hegemony's understanding of physics. Where hegemony ships relied on brute force and power, the human fleet employed precision and efficiency. Their engines produced minimal energy signatures yet achieved incredible acceleration. Their weapons consumed little power, yet penetrated shields designed to withstand far greater forces. On the horizon, Science Officer Lee monitored the engagement with growing confidence. Admiral, we've confirmed our theories about their power. Distribution network. They channel everything through central nodes that can't handle unexpected surges. Han nodded. Perfect. Lieutenant Song, coordinate with all ships. Concentrate fire on those nodes, alternating weapon frequencies to prevent adaptation. The human fleet adjusted their attack pattern, their beams now targeting specific points on the hegemony vessels where power distribution systems clustered. One by one, sections of the alien ships went dark as critical systems failed. In the void of space between the warring fleets, smaller craft now darted about. The fighter squadrons of both sides engaged in their own deadly dance. Here, too, the difference in approach was stark. Hegemony fighters were heavily armored and powerful but lumbering. Human interceptors were light, agile, and piloted with a creativity the hegemony pilots couldn't match. Squadron leader Cho led her wing of interceptors through the heart of the enemy formation, her voice calm over the tactical channel despite the chaos around her. Echo Squadron, form up on my position. Target the fighter launch bays on the remaining cruisers. Her 12 pilots responded instantly, their small craft moving in perfect coordination. Unlike the hegemony pilots who relied heavily on automated systems, Earth's pilots flew with a combination of advanced technology and human intuition that made their movements unpredictable. They're trying to predict our attack vectors based on efficiency algorithms, Cho noted as she watched the enemy fighters adjust their positions. Let's show them why that doesn't work against humans. Break formation, random pattern sigma. The human interceptors suddenly scattered, each taking a unique approach vector that defied mathematical prediction. The hegemony fighters, programmed to counter organized assault patterns, couldn't adjust quickly enough. Within minutes, Cho's squadron had disabled 3 enemy launch bays and destroyed 27 fighters, while losing only 2 of their own. Back on the Horizon's bridge, Admiral Han received updates from throughout the fleet. Boarding teams have secured 60% of the command vessel, reported Officer Yoon. Engineering and database cores are under our control. Han allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. And casualties? Minimal, sir. 3 injured, none critical. The hegemony crew seems unprepared for direct combat. Their internal security relies heavily on automated systems that our EMP devices neutralized. This confirmed another of their theories, that the hegemony, having faced no serious opposition for centuries, had grown dependent on technology rather than training and tactics. Their crews were technically proficient but lacked the adaptability that had become humanity's hallmark during its isolated development. On the main view screen, another hegemony cruiser went dark as its main power core shut down under the precise assault of Captain Park's vessel, the Intrepid. "Sir," called Lieutenant Kim, "we're detecting energy buildup in the hegemony flagship. It appears they're attempting to overload their core." Han frowned. "They'd destroy their own ship rather than be captured? Typical. Signal the boarding team. They need to secure that reactor immediately." Officer Lee studied her readings and shook her head. "It's more than that, Admiral. The energy signature suggests they're trying to create a subspace rupture. If they succeed, it could damage all vessels within half a light minute." Han's decision was immediate. "All ships, pull, back to safe distance. Team Leader Jin, you have 3 minutes to secure that reactor or evacuate your people." Aboard the hegemony command ship, Team Leader Jin and his boarding party raced through the alien corridors. Unlike the sleek, practical designs of human vessels, the hegemony ship was ornate and imposing, built to intimidate rather than function efficiently. "Command, we're approaching the reactor control room," Jin reported as his team took positions around a massive doorway, encountering heavy resistance. Engineer Kang, the team's technical specialist, worked quickly at the adjacent control panel. "Their security protocols are complex but rigid," she muttered. "Give me 40 seconds." The door slid open to reveal the cavernous reactor chamber. A dozen hegemony technicians worked frantically at the controls while armed guards took up defensive positions. Jin didn't hesitate. "Non-lethal takedown," he ordered, and his team deployed stun grenades that filled the chamber with disorienting light and sound. As the hegemony guards struggled to respond, the human boarding team moved with practiced efficiency. Within seconds, they had secured the room and Kang was already working at the main control console. "They've initiated a cascade failure," she reported tensely. "Attempting to reverse." "Got it. Reactor stabilizing." Jin nodded with relief. "Command, reactor secure. We've prevented the overload." On the horizon, Admiral Han received the news with a quiet smile. "Well done. All ships, resume original positions. Let's finish this." Outside, the remaining hegemony vessels, seeing their flagship captured and their fighters outmatched, began powering down their weapons. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over almost before it had truly begun. Human technology, developed in isolation and along entirely different principles than the galactic standard, had proven devastatingly effective against an enemy that had never needed to innovate. Humanity's focus on efficiency, adaptability, and the integration of human intuition with advanced systems had created a force that the hegemony, for all its size and power, simply couldn't counter. As Han looked out at the disabled alien fleet, he knew this was only the beginning. The hegemony would send more ships once they learned what had happened. But by then, humanity would be ready to take the fight to them. The captured hegemony command ship hung in space like a massive wounded animal. Around it, human vessels maintained a protective formation while teams worked inside the alien craft. Admiral Han stood in what had once been Commander Dorn's private quarters, now converted into a temporary analysis center. "What have we learned?" Han asked, his voice quiet, but carrying authority that filled the room. Science Officer Lee looked up from her tablet, excitement clear in her eyes despite her exhaustion. "Everything, Admiral. And I mean that quite literally. Their security protocols were advanced but inflexible. Once we bypassed them, their entire information network opened to us." Engineer Kang nodded in agreement as she projected a holographic map of the galaxy onto the central table. The hegemony controls roughly 30% of the known galaxy, 742 star systems, 318 sentient species under their rule. Han's expression darkened as he studied the map. Red dots indicated hegemony strongholds, while blue marked subjugated worlds. And the populations of these worlds? Intelligence Officer Choi stepped forward, her face grim. That's where it gets ugly, sir. The hegemony doesn't just conquer, they harvest. According to their records, they've eliminated over 40 billion sentient beings in the last century alone. A heavy silence fell over the room. The human officers exchanged troubled glances as the true nature of their enemy became clear. Why? Han finally asked. What possible reason could justify this? Resources, primarily, Choi replied, bringing up another display. The 7 species that make up the Hegemony Council share a belief in their inherent superiority. They view other, sentient life as little more than convenient labor or obstacles to resource acquisition. Lieutenant Kim, who had been analyzing the Hegemony's weapon systems, looked up from his console. Their technology has barely evolved in 3 centuries, Admiral. They've had no reason to innovate because no one has successfully opposed them. Until now, Han said softly. Officer Yoon entered the room, carrying a small crystalline device. Sir, you need to see this. We found it in a hidden compartment in the ship's archive room. She placed the crystal on the table, and it projected an image unlike anything they had seen before, a being of almost translucent appearance with elongated limbs and a face that seemed almost luminous. What is this? Han asked, leaning forward. A message, sir, Yoon replied. From a species called the Guardians. According to the translation matrix, they went extinct over 5,000 years ago, but not before leaving this recording specifically for humans. The crystal pulsed, and the alien figure began to speak in a voice that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds. To the children of Earth, if you are hearing this message, then our calculations were correct. You have emerged from behind the veil and encountered the hegemony. Were the Guardians, the last defense against the darkness that now spreads across the stars. The human officers watched in stunned silence as the ancient alien continued. We created the veil to protect your world, to hide you from those who would destroy you before you could reach your potential. Our scientists foresaw that of all the young species in the galaxy, humanity alone possessed the unique combination of traits needed to challenge the hegemony: creativity, adaptability, and a moral compass that could guide your technological development. Han exchanged glances with his officers. They hid us deliberately, he murmured. We are failing in our war against the hegemony, the Guardian continued. Our numbers too few, our approach too rigid. We recognized too late that our technological superiority was not enough. The hegemony's brutality and willingness to sacrifice entire worlds gave them an advantage we could not counter. The hologram shifted, showing images of worlds being systematically stripped of resources, populations herded into processing centers. By the time you discover this message, we will have been gone for millennia. But we did not leave you defenseless. The veil not only hid you but provided your world with rare elements that would accelerate your technological development along paths the hegemony would not expect. Your isolation became your greatest strength. Officer Lee nodded slowly. That explains our technological divergence. We weren't just developing in isolation. We were being guided. The Guardian's image seemed to look directly at Han. We have left you maps, strategic information, and technical data embedded in this crystal. Use it wisely. You are not just fighting for your own survival, but for all the world suffering under hegemony rule. You are the last hope for a galaxy that has forgotten what freedom means. The message ended, and the room fell silent again. Finally, Han straightened, his shoulders. Download everything from that crystal. I want a complete analysis within 12 hours. Engineer Kang nodded. Yes, sir. But there's something else you should know. She brought up another display showing a series of transmission logs. The hegemony commander managed to get a distress call out before we captured the ship. It was highly compressed, but it contained basic information about our fleet and capabilities. Han's expression remained calm, but his eyes hardened. How long before they send reinforcements? Tactical Officer Song consulted his data. Based on their nearest major fleet position and their fastest propulsion technology, 3 weeks minimum. We have that long to prepare, Han said, and to decide our next move. Outside the captured vessel, the human fleet continued its patrols. Medical teams had already landed on Proxima Centauri's inhabited world, providing aid to the population that had endured the hegemony's brief but brutal attack. The native species, tall, six-limbed beings with copper-colored skin, had received the humans with cautious gratitude. Back on the horizon, Admiral Han stood in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Officer Choi joined him, carrying more reports. The hegemony database contains locations of resistance movements on 43 subjugated worlds, she said. Small groups, mostly disorganized but fighting nonetheless. Han nodded. Contact them, discreetly. There's more, Choi continued. We've identified 17 independent species that have managed to avoid hegemony detection. Most are hiding in radiation belts, nebulae, or other natural phenomena that mask their presence, just as the veil hid us. Potential allies, Han mused. And this, Choi handed him a final report. The Hegemony High Command, 7 members, 1 from each founding species. They direct all military operations from a central fortress world called Dominion. Han studied the images of the 7 alien rulers, different in appearance but united in their belief in their right to dominate all other life. They've never experienced defeat, Han said quietly. They won't know how to respond when news of this battle reaches them. They'll likely dismiss it as equipment malfunction or exaggeration, Choi suggested. Their psychology shows a consistent pattern of denial when faced with evidence that contradicts their worldview. Han turned from the window, a determined expression settling on his face. Then we'll need to make our point more clearly. Contact Earth, tell them to accelerate production of the new fleet vessels, and have Officer Lee begin analysis of the Guardian data immediately. As Han walked back toward the bridge, he passed through corridors where human crew members worked alongside refugees from Proxima Centauri. The sight strengthened his resolve. Humanity had emerged from hiding not just to defend itself, but to become the shield for all those who could not fight back. The hegemony had ruled through fear for centuries. They were about to learn that humanity had something far more powerful driving them: hope. 3 weeks passed with remarkable speed. The human fleet had grown, reinforced by vessels that had departed Earth immediately after receiving news of the initial engagement. Admiral Han now commanded 37 warships, each incorporating technology gleaned from both the captured hegemony vessels and the ancient Guardian crystal. They're coming, announced Lieutenant Kim from his sensor station aboard the horizon. Long-range detection shows a hegemony battle group, 43 ships including 3 dreadnoughts. Han nodded calmly. Right on schedule. They've responded exactly as predicted. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, the tension in the air palpable but controlled. In the 3 weeks since their victory, they had prepared meticulously for this moment. Open fleet-wide communication, Han ordered. Officer Yoon nodded. Channel open, sir. Han took a moment to gather his thoughts. All ships, this is Admiral Han. Today we face the full might of the hegemony for the first time. They come seeking vengeance for their defeated comrades, expecting to find a lucky rebel force they can easily crush. He paused, looking around at his crew. Instead, they will find us. Remember your training. Remember what we fight for. Not just for Earth, but for every world suffering under hegemony oppression. Across the fleet, crews listened intently. Many had family back on Earth. Others had formed bonds with the refugees from Proxima Centauri. All understood the stakes. Tactical Formation Omega, Han concluded. May your aim be true. Han out. The human fleet spread out in a complex 3-dimensional formation that would have been impossible to coordinate without the neural link systems developed on Earth. Unlike traditional military hierarchies, the human command structure allowed for simultaneous coordination and individual initiative, a concept alien to the rigid hegemony protocols. Aboard the hegemony flagship Supremacy, Fleet Commander Vex studied the sensor data with growing confusion. These readings can't be accurate, he growled. The rebel ships are showing energy signatures far below what would be needed for vessels of that size. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Axel, looked equally perplexed. Perhaps their technology is simply primitive, Commander. The initial distress call indicated unusual weapon configurations, but nothing that our shields can't handle. Vex wasn't convinced. The previous fleet was annihilated. Something doesn't add up. Nevertheless, he gave the order to proceed. All ships advance in echelon formation, weapons at full charge. The massive hegemony fleet moved forward with ponderous grace, their huge vessels bristling with weapon emplacements. Unlike the sleek, efficient designs of the human ships, the hegemony favored intimidating bulk and visible armaments. They're maintaining standard approach vectors, reported Tactical Officer Song on the horizon. No indication they've adapted their shield configurations since our last encounter. They don't believe the reports, Han mused. Good. Deploy Phase 1 countermeasures. Throughout the human fleet, small devices detached from the hulls and scattered into precise positions. These were the products of Engineer Kang's team. Tiny drones that began emitting specific energy patterns designed to confuse hegemony sensors. On the Supremacy, alarms suddenly blared. "Commander," shouted a sensor officer. "Energy fluctuations throughout the sector. Our targeting systems are losing." "Lock." Vex slammed a fist onto his console. "Compensate, recalibrate the sensors." But it was already too late. The human fleet accelerated with shocking speed, closing the distance far faster than the hegemony had anticipated. Before Vex could issue new orders, the first salvos struck his fleet's forward vessels. Just as in the previous engagement, the phase-shifted beams passed through the hegemony shields as if they weren't there. But this time the human weapons had been refined further. Instead of merely disabling systems, they targeted specific vulnerabilities identified from the captured ship data. "First wave impact successful," reported Lieutenant Kim. 12 enemy vessels experiencing critical power failures. Han nodded. "Execute maneuver pattern Delta. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship." The human fleet moved with choreographed precision, weaving between the massive hegemony vessels. Where the aliens relied on overwhelming firepower and nearly impenetrable shields, the humans employed speed, coordination, and targeted strikes against critical systems. Aboard the Supremacy, chaos reigned. "Shields failing! Weapons offline!" shouted officers as system after system went dark. Commander Vex stared in disbelief as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy they had grossly underestimated. "This is impossible," he muttered. "No species has this kind of technology." Sub-Commander Axel approached, fear evident in his posture. "Sir, we should retreat, regroup and return with—" "No," Vex roared. "The hegemony does not retreat. All remaining ships focus fire on the enemy flagship." The few functioning hegemony vessels turned their massive weapons toward the horizon. Energy beams of devastating power streaked across space, only to be absorbed by the newly installed Guardian shield technology that Engineer Kang had adapted from the ancient data crystal. "Shield integrity at 93%, reported Officer Lee with barely contained excitement. "The Guardian tech works perfectly." Han allowed himself a small smile. "Return fire. End this." The Horizon's main weapons discharged, sending precisely calibrated beams directly into the Supremacy's command center. The massive flagship went dark, drifting powerlessly as secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The mighty hegemony fleet had been reduced to drifting hulks. Boarding parties were already securing the vessels that remained intact enough to salvage. "Status report," Han requested calmly. 3 human vessels with moderate damage, no casualties," replied Officer Yoon. "The hegemony fleet is completely neutralized." Han nodded. "Begin rescue operations for any hegemony survivors, and prepare. I shuttle. I want to speak with Commander Vex personally." An hour later, Han stood in what remained of the Supremacy's command deck. Before him knelt Commander Vex, his once proud posture now hunched in defeat. "How?" the alien commander asked, his voice barely a whisper. 3 centuries of hegemony dominance ended in less than an hour." "You grew complacent," Han replied simply. While you conquered through brute force, we developed in isolation, finding different solutions to the same problems. And unlike you, we understand that strength comes not from domination, but cooperation. He gestured to the view screen where human medical teams could be seen treating injured hegemony crew members. This is the difference between us. You see other species as resources to exploit. We see potential allies. Vex looked up, his alien features unreadable to human eyes. The High Command will send more ships. They control thousands of worlds. Not for much longer, Han replied, activating a holographic display showing dozens of planets where rebellion was now spreading. News of the hegemony's defeat had traveled faster than light through hidden communication networks established by resistance groups. Already 17 subjugated worlds have overthrown their hegemony overseers, Han explained. Another 34 are in open revolt. Your empire was built on fear. Remove that fear, and it crumbles. 3 months later, Admiral Han stood before the United Earth Council in the Grand Chamber in Seoul. The room was filled not only with human representatives but also ambassadors from 23 alien species, former hegemony subjects and hidden civilizations that had revealed themselves following humanity's victories. The hegemony High Command has fled their fortress world, Han reported. Their empire is collapsing as more worlds declare independence daily. Those hegemony forces that remain loyal are scattered and disorganized. Council Leader Bay nodded gravely. And what do you propose we do now, Admiral? Earth has suddenly found itself at the center of a galactic revolution. Han turned to address the assembled representatives. We have an opportunity and a responsibility. The Guardians protected us because they believed humanity could bring balance to the galaxy. Not through conquest as the hegemony did, but through partnership. He activated a holographic display showing a symbol derived from both Earth designs and elements from the Guardian crystal, a stylized galaxy with Earth at its center but not dominating. I propose the formation of the Stellar Cooperative, an alliance of free worlds dedicated to mutual defense, trade, and cultural exchange. Unlike the hegemony, membership would be voluntary, and all species would have equal representation. The door chamber erupted in discussion, but the mood was clearly supportive. After centuries of oppression under the hegemony, the concept of a cooperative alliance held tremendous appeal. As the council session concluded, Han walked alongside Ambassador Lore of Proxima Centauri, whose people had been the first to be saved by human intervention. Your proposal will face challenges, Lore noted in his melodious voice. Many worlds know only conquest and submission. Freedom is a concept they must learn. Han nodded. Which is why we'll proceed slowly, helping worlds establish their own governments before joining the cooperative. Earth won't repeat the hegemony's mistakes by imposing our will on others. They paused at a viewport overlooking Earth's orbital shipyards, where vessels of human and alien design were being constructed side by side. The Guardians chose wisely, Lore remarked. In just 3 months, you've accomplished what resistance movements couldn't achieve in centuries. Han shook his head slightly. Not just us. Everyone who refused to accept the hegemony's vision of the galaxy. We simply provided the spark. As night fell over Seoul, lights twinkled across the city that had become the unofficial capital of the new galactic order. In orbital stations and on planets across former hegemony space, beings of countless species looked to the stars with hope, rather than fear for the first time in generations. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as liberators, and the stars themselves seemed brighter for it.